Hi everyone, this is Amy from the Helms Academy, and today we're doing a reading and writing club recap from our Elements of Literature lesson. We originally did this lesson on August 18th, 2020, so whether you missed the session or you just want to review the information, let's get started. So today we're going to talk about 5 elements of literature: setting, characters, point of view, plot, and theme. Now, literature is any story. It could be a story that is fictional, meaning it didn't really happen, it was made up, or it could be a nonfiction story, but it's told in a way that's meant to captivate and entertain you. So these are different elements that we'll see across all types of literature, and you'll be able to identify not only in the story we'll look at today, but in other places as well. We're going to start with the story of the Little Red Hen today. Maybe you're familiar with this story from growing up. The Little Red Hen story goes like this. One morning, Little Red Hen found a grain of wheat in the field by her home. "Who will plant this?" she asked. "Not I," said the cat. "Not I," said the goose. "Not I," said the rat. "Then I will," said Little Red Hen. So she buried the wheat in the ground. After a while, it grew up yellow and ripe. "The wheat is ripe now," said Little Red Hen. "Who will cut and thresh it?" "Not I," said the cat. "Not I," said the goose. "Not I," said the rat. "Then I will," said Little Red Hen. So she cut it with her bill and threshed it with her wings. And then she asked, "Who will take this wheat to the mill?" "Not I," said the cat. "Not I," said the goose. "Not I," said the rat. "Then I will," said Little Red Hen. So she took the wheat to the mill where it was ground. Then she carried the flour home. "Who will make me some bread with this flour?" she asked. "Not I," said the cat. "Not I," said the goose. "Not I," said the rat. "Then I will," said Little Red Hen. So she made and baked the bread. And then she said, "Now we shall see who will eat this bread." "We will," said cat, goose, and rat. "I'm quite sure you would," said Little Red Hen, "if you could get it." Then she called her chicks, and they ate up all the bread. There was none left at all for the cat, or the goose, or the rat. So using this story, we're going to identify the things that we see across all types of literature, these 5 characteristics. Let's start with setting. Setting is when and where the story takes place. So we're looking for the time and place. Now, there are some things you can infer about our setting that aren't explicitly said, or there are other things that are said directly here. So if we look back at the text, you'll see some words in red on the screen. First of all, we know the story starts in the morning because we see one morning at the beginning. And then we see that the wheat is in a field by her home. So we know that the Little Red Hen lives in an area that has fields around it. We see later that she takes the wheat to the mill, so it's another place or setting for this story. And then she carried the flour back home. So those are definitely the places that we see things happening in this story. We don't have a lot of other information, but we do know that it happens over time because there are multiple steps and the wheat must grow. Some folks from our session today said that they imagine this was probably in a rural area, like a farm, because it was someplace where she'd be able to grow the wheat. Now, the characters are people or other beings acting in the story. You could just call them the actors in the story. In this one, you'll notice that there are no people in this story, but we do have other characters. We can identify the characters as the Little Red Hen. She's the main character. Then there's the cat, the goose, and the rat. And those 4 play the largest part in the story. But at the end, we do see a few additional characters, her chicks, who come to eat the bread. Now, the point of view is the perspective from which the story is told. Point of view is one of 3 categories. It can be first person, where I am telling the story. I went here and I did this. I gave the example here of "that was delicious," I said. It's a personal narrative. They're telling the story from their own perspective. This one person. Second person is when the story is written in your or yours. So for example, you would say, you walk toward another person, you make eye contact and shudder. So this reminds me a lot of the old Choose Your Own Adventure books. And then third person, you would see he, she, they, him, her, them, his, hers, theirs. You might also see proper names. So this one would sound like, who wants some dinner? She shouted. Coming, they yelled back. Little did they know, someone else was awaiting them at the dinner table. So I like to think of third person, not always, but often, as someone looking into a snow globe, watching what's happening inside, right? This person, they see a person running and they document that. They see a person go into a house, and they document that. So if you can think about it from that perspective, it might help to distinguish, especially between first and third. So in our story here, we see things like she asked, said the cat, said the goose, said the rat. And in no place in the story is it told from just one person's point of view. It's as if someone else is watching into the story and seeing what each character does and says. So this is an example of third person. Now our next category is plot, and plot is the events that happen in the story. Usually you'll see a plot structure very similar to the one on the screen here. You have the exposition, or the beginning, where you're telling the audience who and what and when and where to give them an idea of what's happening in the story. Then there's a rising action. So these are all the events that lead up to the climax, which is the big turning point in the story. It's where everything changes. After the climax, there will be a falling action and a final resolution to the story to bind it all together. So if we use that example for our story here, we see it sets us up at the beginning by telling us that we have a little red hen one morning finding a grain of wheat. And then we start to see this action build. The hen has all these questions, like who will plant this? Who will cut and thresh it? Who will take this to the mill? And each time we hear the same refrain. Not I, said the cat. Not I, said the goose. Not I, said the rat. So there we have it. We had our beginning introduction, and now we have our rising action. Now, can you identify where the climax is, where everything changes in this story? Well, over and over we heard, not I, not I, not I. But all of a sudden, then we see, then I will, and we have the hen asking if who will eat the bread. Well, then they say, we will, said cat, goose, and rat. So you can see that towards the end of the story, we see a distinct change, and the cat, goose, and rat are willing to help with the eating, even though they weren't willing to help with the work. So with that change in the story, we hit our climax, and now it starts to hit the falling action and resolution. So the falling action is the hen deciding that they will not get any of the bread because she will instead give it to her chicks. And then the resolution is that none was left for the cat or the goose or the rat. Our last thing for today is to talk about theme. So theme is an idea or a concept that the story explores, and it usually relates to the moral or lesson of the story. So we'll start with that. If you can identify the moral or lesson, you can most likely backtrack to get to the theme. So here, I get the lesson from this book that there were many animals that weren't willing to help, and so they did not get to enjoy the reward of all the labor. They were not willing to help with the grain, the planting, the growing, turning it into flour. And so once it was finally made into flour, then they weren't able to share in it because they didn't participate in that initial work. So when we tell this story to children, it's usually used to explain that they have to work hard to be able to enjoy the fruits of their labor. And they can't just receive things without actually working for them. So the idea or concept that the story explores could be something like hard work. And we also see some themes such as, the value of family. The little red hen gives this food to her chicks rather than sharing it with these other people in her community. So she's taking care of her own first. So that could be another theme that we explore here. Thank you so much for joining me for this Writing and Reading Club recap. I hope that you'll check out our other videos by subscribing to our YouTube channel. And you can also look for us on Facebook, Instagram, and at helmsacademy.org.